In this video, you'll see how I created these 3 commission pieces. Stick around to the end where I'll show you how I preserve my marks and varnish. Okay, let's get started. Hello and welcome. This is Betty with Betty Franks Art, and I am so happy to have you back with me today. Or if you are new to my channel, welcome, and I hope that you enjoyed this video today. I am working on 3 30 by 30 by, I believe, almost 1.5, not quite 1.5 inch deep. I got these canvases from Blick, and this is for a commission. I've got 3 of them that I'm doing at the same time that will be all hanging together in a dining room area in a modern home. So really excited about having these pieces in their home. Now, if you watched my previous video where I was working on 3 30 by 30s that were more grayish, those were actually the first ones that I created for this couple. However, what ended up happening is I went a little too far in a direction that I thought they wanted to go in, and I was completely off. So what I ended up doing is finishing those 3, which I absolutely love the way they turned out. I normally don't do a lot of gray in my paintings, and in that one I did quite a bit, and I really just love the way they worked out. So I decided, instead of painting over those ones to get it to come back to the colors that the client wanted, I decided that I would just start on 3 new ones. I ended up purchasing, I believe it was I think it was 6 canvases from Blick. So I had these extra 3, thankfully, and so I decided to just start all over, which turned out great, and you'll see that at the end of this, or you saw that at the beginning, the way they turned out. So I'll be walking you through my entire process here. And I sped up this video, otherwise we would be here for an awful long time. I didn't realize how many hours I had spent on this particular commission piece. I would say probably a bit longer than I normally do. And now off the top of my head, I don't remember how many hours of video I have, but I did condense it down to an hour. So I believe it was more like 4 hours or longer. But in the end, it was all worth it because I love the way they turned out. My process in the beginning is to put down marks. I like to just loosen up by putting down marks with a different type of pencils and crayons. So a lot of times in the beginning, I like to start with the regular number 2 pencil, and then I throw in whatever colors I grab out of my little basket there. And those are typically, those are typically Prismacolor pencils or Neocolor 2 crayons, things of that nature. Here what I'm doing is I put down some paint, and now I'm scratching into that wet paint so I can start building up some texture. And I think I was using a nail. I've got a nail or 2 on my table there. I've also got a skewer that I like to use. I like to use toothpick also to kind of make finer marks into the canvas or into the wet paint. Now, what you don't see in this particular view, I don't know if you'll see it in another view. If you look at the very top photo that I have, those are all pictures of artwork that I've done in the past. The one at the very top, and you can only see like the bottom quarter of it, that's the inspiration piece. And actually I have 2 of them up there. The other one you can't even see at all because I taped it up a little bit higher. And those were 2 that I created when I was in Croatia earlier this year. And I was using a limited palette, and that limited palette was mostly grays, a mustardy yellow, and a little bit of green, if I remember specifically. So I kept it very limited, and that's what the client ended up liking. And what I did for this client is they sent me a picture of the wall and the room and the wall where these would be hanging. And what I put what I did was I used an app called Wall Picture to import their room or their photo of their room into that app. And then I added 3 photos of artwork in there. So they can see how it would look. Now that was based on the inspiration piece. I did this with like 3 different types of artwork so that they can get a feel for what would work in their space. And they ended up selecting, they originally wanted some brighter colors, but I threw in these more neutral ones because I had an opportunity to look at different pictures of their home. And with it being a very modern home, I felt like this more not muted but more subdued palette in terms of colors was going to work better in their space. And in the end, I ended up being right because that was the one that they selected. So after they had an opportunity to see what it could look like on their wall, I'm using that inspiration piece to create these pieces. Now, of course, I can't duplicate any one of my paintings. It's next to impossible for me to do that. And the main reason for that is because I'm very intuitive when I'm painting, and I also mix colors as I go. And I don't often wash out my brush. So that means that whatever color is on my brush, I'm picking up the next color or the next color. And all those colors are kind of mixing together. And basically that's harmonizing your colors. So I do that on a consistent basis with all of my paintings. And that's why it's really hard for me to recreate colors. So and when folks ask me, well, what color did you use? I can say I used phthalo turquoise, for example, but there was something else on my brush when I was using that color. And so you may not get that same color like I did, and I cannot get that color again in a future painting. I hope all that makes sense. All right, so going back to talking a little bit about my process here, you can see I've got a lot of dark areas and I'm filling in even more dark areas again. And that's because I really like my paintings to have depth. And what I have found is that if I add that black in the beginning, it adds a lot of depth. And also, I once tried adding it at the end and I just really didn't like the way it was kind of floating on the top of my painting. And it wasn't creating that depth that I love. So I've learned to just do all my dark colors in the very beginning, especially the black. Now this particular black is not just a pure black. I mixed it in with, I think, maybe phthalo turquoise and some other blue to give it a little bit more depth of a color. Sometimes I'll do it straight black, carbon black out of the jar. Other times I like to mix those colors. The studio space that I'm in here is located in San Jose, California, which is near San Francisco, if you're not familiar with the state of California. I have been renting out this space for well over a year, I think a year and a half or so, and absolutely love it. It's about the size of a two-car garage, I would say, maybe a tiny bit larger. And what I liked about this space especially is that I only create my large art in this space. I have a studio at home out of the garage as well. I call my garage studio, and it's just a 1-car garage studio, and I use that space to work on my smaller pieces. So this space in downtown San Jose that I rent out is just a sanctuary for me. I love going in there. I've got a wonderful place to sit and relax, kick up my feet, stare at my wall, stare at my paintings, and contemplate or just, do whatever. It's so nice to just get away from my home and my office, which is in my home, and just be in a creative space and get away from it all. So I came back the next day, and when I come back the next day, I often will come in, especially these early stages, I'll come in and just start making marks again as if I'm starting a brand new canvas. And this is adding another layer of interest to my paintings. Not all of these marks are going to show, but some of them are going to show through here and there. So I'm looking at my list of colors that I posted to remind me of the colors that this painting needs to have in them. And as I mentioned before, it's got the darker colors, the grays. Well, it's going to have grays in it, but black or a dark charcoal gray. And I've got Indian yellow there, cadmium medium yellow. I've got I think a light yellow, but I forget which one that's called. If you're interested in the paints that I use, so these are called Nova Color paints. They are located in Southern California, and you can only purchase directly from them. They do not have a middleman, which means you can't find them in the stores. And I've been using them for several years. Absolutely love their paints. I love their color selection, pigmentation, quality of the paints. They only have one type of paint, so they don't have like a heavy body and a high flow or anything like that. They've got one, and it's kind of in between a fluid and a heavy body. More on the fluid side, I would say. I like the consistency. It works for me. I've learned to, or I should say I've learned to work with it over the years. I know that there's other types of paints. I don't know the right term for it, but basically I know Golden will offer high flow, which is very watered down, although it's not watered down, but it's very, very liquidy. And they also, the other end of their scale is their heavy bodies. This is more fluid, and they also offer a fluid. But anyway, they're in Southern California, Nova Color Paint. I've got a link down below in the show notes that tells you, that will send you to their website. But if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed because there are so many selections on their website, then I've got a page that I created that lists kind of the basic colors that I like to use. And I created this list because I received so many emails and messages the past year or two about, which colors should I start with, which ones should I get. Now, I do recommend that you start with the 4-ounce jar, and I don't see any in this video right now. I do have some in the studio, but right now what we're looking at are the pint size and the quart size. And I recommend the 4-ounce size. Those are the ones that I always start with if I want to try out a new color, just so I can find out, do I like this color? And I have found over the years that sometimes there's colors that I just don't care for. And I'm always happy that I only invested like $5 to $10 in a small one before deciding to go with a larger one. Here I've now created some grays that I'm adding in here. The client's home has a lot of gray in it, and that's where I messed up in the other video that I posted, the first 3 that I did, which is I kind of made the executive decision to go more with grays, and that is not the direction they wanted to go. So when we regrouped, we really, I had a better understanding of exactly what they were looking for. So I'm adding some neutrals in here that, so far, I mean, you're probably looking at this going, Betty, there's not your bright, happy colors. And you're right, there isn't. I will be adding some more slightly brighter colors, but you're not going to find all of those reds and pinks that I like to use in this particular painting. I'm working all 3 at the same time because all 3 are going to be hanging next to each other. So the one on the top left will be the far left one, and then the one on the right top will be the middle one, and the one at the bottom will be the one on the right. And now I'm trying to make sure that, see how I'm working this particular left side of the lower one and then working the right side of the upper one. I'm kind of eyeing it, making sure that one will flow into the next one. And towards the end, I will rotate them, and so that I can make sure that more of as we get towards the end, that more of it is flowing from one canvas into the next. I'm going to include a link to the previous video that I was mentioning that has the other 3 pieces that I did. In these early stages, I am doing a lot of mark making, and I'm not entirely thinking about composition in terms of knowing what the final will look like, but I'm just starting to build composition as I go very slowly. So when I'm building composition, the things that I think about are my elements, meaning my marks. So if you've been following me for a while, you know that my inspiration comes from fields of flowers and my love for flowers, my love for nature. And those are the kinds of marks that I'm making on my canvases here to represent my love for those. But what I'm also being very conscious of is, do I have some larger elements? Do I have some smaller elements? I don't want everything to be the same size. And that's where I start to get in trouble when I look at a painting and I say to myself, well, what isn't working here that I should be addressing? It's kind of a problem-solving thing. So looking at a painting and saying, okay, kind of my little mental checklist, how do the colors look? Do I have, see, for example, right there, the one on the left, it didn't have enough large elements to it. So I've come in with some larger circles. And there I'm putting my hand over a section, trying to decide if I should have put that one there or if I need to move something else. So the beauty about acrylic paints, which is what I'm using here, is that you can cover up whatever is not working. So right there, that one larger circle in the upper right, that larger circle that was more on the left side, it wasn't working with the new circle that I put above. What happens is, as I put down marks, one mark is going to influence the next mark, or one color will influence the next color, or what color I put next to it. So it's a game of give and take, push and pull, covering stuff up, bringing stuff back forward. And here I'm looking at flow and I'm looking at colors. So trying to decide where else do I need that? And I'm working all 3 canvases at the same time. So when you're working on a commission like this, where all 3 are going to be hanging together, it's great to work them all at the same time so that you know that they're all going to be flowing into one another and the colors are all going to work together. There, I have to get on my little stool to get the very top. I like to paint all the edges, even the top. I know no one's going to see the top, but to me it's important that every edge is covered. So now I've pretty much covered almost all the canvases. There's a little bit of white showing here and there, but it will get all covered up eventually. The one on the top left certainly needs a whole lot more work. I think I've been working the other ones, especially that top right one feels like it's coming along a lot more. And here I need to address that left one there. Now, one of the things that the client requested was that the piece not be overly busy, more of a, calming, serene feel to it. So in my head, I kept thinking, okay, well, what does that mean? And to me, I felt like that meant, I shouldn't make as many marks. And so that was kind of my goal, was to make enough marks in it to represent, the type of work that I like to represent or the type of work that I create, but also to meet the client's request as much as possible. So my focus was to try to add more fields of paint that didn't have too many marks going on. So if you're familiar with my paintings and my painting style, then you probably know that that was a true challenge for me. And I'm laughing because it really was challenging for me to do that, to think in terms of more fields of color and not too many marks. So these are coming along nicely, but we're only, well, not even halfway through. I'm looking at my marker on my editing software here. So we've got a little ways to go. Again, trying to make sure all my sides are done as I paint. I find it so hard to go back and fill in the sides of my paintings with color to match the original colors that I was using. So there on that right canvas, I created a big solid circle, didn't like that, and immediately grabbed my spray bottle with water in it and added water. So there I was trying to match things up, see if they're lining up. So the spray bottle comes in handy, especially if your paint is still very wet, and just spraying it and letting the drips go down, or grabbing a towel or rag and just cleaning up all the drips right away. Here I'm trying to introduce some values. I've talked a lot about values before, and I actually created a video not too long ago that was an exercise in values. And I'm going to link that here so that you can check that out. Now, values are so important when you are creating your artwork. It's almost more important than the colors that you're selecting, because people see values before they actually see colors. And what they're seeing is your brightest areas, your lightest area, not brightest, but your lightest area next to your darkest area. Those are the areas that create the most contrast in value, and typically that's where your eye is going to go first. So I was talking earlier about, kind of my checklist of knowing when something is done. I'm looking at the composition. I'm looking at values. That's really important. And if I'm having a hard time seeing values just by looking at my colored painting, I'll take a picture and I'll convert it to black and white so that I can truly see where those values are. And what I'm looking for is a nice flow of values. Are all the light areas just in one small area, or is it distributed a bit more evenly? I prefer that it's distributed evenly so that the eye kind of flows in and out of a painting. And then same for dark areas. Are they distributed nicely throughout the painting where the eye is flowing in and out? And you'll find that I'm going to go back over many areas in addition to creating new marks on top of maybe some existing marks. Sometimes I go right over the existing marks with one more layer of color. And that's creating depth to the painting, adding more interest to the painting. And that one down below, notice how I added those small blocks of color. So instead of filling in a whole area with a light color or a very light value, I can also come in and create marks using a light value. If you're liking this video so far, I would so appreciate it if you can give me a thumbs up. That lets me know that you are enjoying it, and also it helps other folks be able to see this video as well. And the way that you're helping to do that is YouTube will say, okay, all these people are liking this video, then we should serve it up to more people so that they can also watch the video and enjoy it. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, there is in the bottom right a round teal circle. That's my logo. If you just hover over that when you're on your desktop or your laptop computer, it'll allow you to subscribe there. Or if you are on your phone watching me, then you can just go underneath the video and there's a subscribe button. And then there's also a bell. So YouTube includes a bell so that if you hit that bell, click on it, it's going to alert you when I have a new video. Oops, wrong side. So I don't rotate my I don't rotate my canvases. I get that question often. And I used to do that. I tried doing it and I just don't care for it. I don't like it. Probably one of the reasons why is probably because I am trying to create my vision of fields of flowers. And to me, my vision of fields of flowers are not upside down, they're not sideways. And so I have a hard time creating if I rotate my canvas. It just throws everything off for me. It's kind of like, just I'm trying to explain this. So let's see. It's like hiking out in nature and all of a sudden everything is sideways. It just logically doesn't make sense to me. So for me, when I create, I don't like to rotate because I am very focused on creating a specific type of vision. And it might work for you. Give it a try if you've never tried it before. It doesn't work for everybody. And just because a lot of folks do it, or even some instructors say you should, as an abstract artist, you should be rotating your canvas. There are no absolutes in painting, in creating. Do what works best for you. But try everything. That's one of the things that I loved about getting to where I am today is I tried just about everything. Well, I should say I tried everything that interested me, and it could have been products, it could have been techniques, it could have been paint colors. I tried everything that was interesting to me, and then from there I kind of weeded out what I didn't like. And if I hadn't done all of that, then I would still kind of be trying to figure out what I like and what I don't like. That even comes down to brushes. The brush that I'm holding is, I don't know if that one's I don't think that one's a long handle brush. I think that's one of my shorter handle. But I like using some long handle brushes, some short handle brushes. When I'm working large, I usually like the long handles, but lately I found that I really like using even the short handles. And there I'm lining up again, trying to see if those colors are matching up. So it's important that you experiment and try different products, different techniques, different paint colors. Figure out what you like and what works best for you. I love that green. So that's one of the other colors that I'm using here that the client requested, kind of a lime green. And I mix that up using, there I'm pulling a little bit of turquoise, what color was that? My mind just went blank. Phthalo turquoise, that's what I wanted to say. Phthalo turquoise and some, I believe I grabbed some Indian yellow and some cadmium yellow. Now I've also got a mustardy yellow working in there too. If you'd like to check out my list of favorite art supplies, I've got that in the link down below as well. It includes some of my mark making tools such as the Prismacolor pencils and Neocolor 2 crayons. I also love the Stabilo Woodies, another type of crayon. So those are all listed along with a number of other things. All right, so I'm kind of wrapping up this session. Okay, I've come back. I think this is this is another day because I'm wiping down. Sometimes the paint sticks out a little too much, so I kind of just knock it back. And I changed the angle of my camera, which wasn't a good idea, I discovered. You'll find out later as I move the camera again. Because I'm not used to having the camera back there, I think I actually bump into it a couple of times. As I did before, I'm doing this again where I'm coming in with some mark making, but I'm not quite scribbling it everywhere. I'm being a little bit more particular about where I'm making those marks. And that's because I feel like I'm getting closer to the end. And so I don't want to just randomly throw marks everywhere. But still trying to keep it a bit loose. All right, so back to my colors. I've got a gray there as well. And the pinkish, the pale pink that I was using earlier, and I just opened the jar, I can see it there, is Portrait Tone. And it's one that I just started using. I really like it. I bought a small jar of it that I took overseas to Croatia with me, which is what I used to create the one that you can't see at the very, very top of this video. You can just see the bottom little section of it. But I started using it. And I typically use that one straight out of the jar. I haven't found too many colors that I really want to mix with it because it's such a light pink. If I add more white to it, it kind of dulls it out a little bit too much. So I've kind of been using it straight out of the jar. Now I also found with me having the camera at this angle, there are some parts of the painting that you can't see because I'm standing right in front of it. So lesson learned. See, for example here, I keep backing up into the camera, forgetting that it's there. At this stage, I'm doing a bit more thinking, trying to figure things out, trying to pull it together, so to speak. Making some smaller marks. And again, I'm trying to keep in mind that the client requested that it be a bit more calming. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do I keep it interesting and calming at the same time? Very challenging. I started creating a series of videos around art marketing, and I'll be posting a new one fairly soon. If you're watching this when I first posted it, it's not there yet, but if you're watching this after, I don't know, several weeks, then you'll be able to find those. And if you go to my home page and scroll down a bit, I'll have a whole section of videos that are called art marketing. And so I've already done one about social media. And I think the next one I'm going to be doing is about pricing. And then I've got a few others on my list here that include, let me grab my list. So I'll be talking pricing. I'll be talking about commissions, just like I'm doing here, commission, gallery representation. I'll talk about art festivals as well, because I've done that. And then I've got a note here to talk about shipping. So a lot to talk about. So social media one is already there, and I'll link it here for you so that if you want to check that out, it's available to you. As an artist, you probably know, if you are trying to be a selling artist, you probably know that it's challenging. There's so much to do. There's so much to learn. So in addition to creating art and having that creative practice, you're also running a business and you're an entrepreneur and you've got to do a number of different things such as, being the shipping manager, and you've got to be the marketing manager, and you've got to be the office manager, and you've got to be the web developer. And there's, a lot that needs to be done. And I know it can be overwhelming. There's so much that I have learned over the years, and that's why I decided to put together a series of videos on art marketing so that you can learn about, the different aspects of the business. There was a time where I was spending about 50% of my time running my business, and now I'm actually up closer to around 75% of my time. So the majority of my days are spent at my desk doing work, which I absolutely love because my background is actually in corporate America. So for the majority of my career, I was in customer service management for high-tech companies, and I was very used to working at a desk, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and creating spreadsheets and preparing presentations and creating programs, managing people, doing all that stuff. So I think I'm fortunate in that regard because I've got that background and experience. However, I still had to learn so much because not all of that applied to running an art business. There's, different things that you have to learn when you're running an art business. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of those things with you. And really, they're all based on what I have learned in my experiences. And that's the best I can do is just share what has worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. So look for some more of those videos coming up soon. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit closer to the end here, where they're really starting to come together more so, and they're looking a bit more cohesive, more interesting things happening. And what I'm looking for is, for each piece, where is my eye going and what needs to be done in that area? Like, why is my eye going there and what do I like or don't like about that particular area? And how is that particular area working with the rest of it? So, as I mentioned before, for me, creating is a lot of troubleshooting. It's trying to figure things out where whereas opposed those beginning stages was just about freely putting down colors and marks and just having some fun with that process and being very loose. And now this portion, it's tightening up a bit more and having it all make sense, making it come together. So notice now I'm standing over to the left because I finally figured out that the camera's right behind me because I kept forgetting. I get very involved in my paintings, and I'm also listening to an audiobook. So I'm very involved in the story I'm hearing, and I have found that I do my best creating when I am listening to words being spoken as opposed to music. So I've stopped listening to music and I just listen to audiobooks or podcasts. And in terms of podcasts, I just listen to a variety, everything from news to listening to other artists being interviewed, things like that. And when it comes to audiobooks, I love romance series. And when I say series, like this particular series that I'm listening to by Robin Carr, Carr, is and it's actually a Netflix original series as well. But anyway, what I found, what I find, excuse me, what I find is that I get so involved in the characters because it goes from one book to the next book to the next book are a lot of the same characters. And so I get so involved in their stories and their history and all that stuff. So my brain is very engaged is what I'm trying to get to. My brain is very engaged in that story, and it really allows me some freedom to create and to be loose and free in creating and not have my brain criticizing what I'm doing and critiquing it. Although it is a little bit, but it's not so much in a negative way. It's more in a, what should I be doing next? Let me see what I can fix next. Where's the next area that needs to be worked? So more of troubleshooting and problem solving as opposed to, oh my God, why did you do that, Betty? And why are you putting down that color? And what, where's your head? And, I got rid of that kind of negative self-talk by listening to audiobooks or just listening to the spoken word. So if you are struggling with having too much negative self-talk about your paintings and your process, I really encourage you to try podcasts or audiobooks and get your brain engaged in listening to conversations. So this is, I think, the last session I have before the clients come to my studio to take a look at the artwork. So I'm really kind of working towards the end here. And remember, I was trying to keep it simple and relaxing and calming, but yet have it interesting as well. Now I've got that lighter color on my brush, so I am trying to disperse it evenly over all of the canvases. Let me talk about my painting wall. I get a lot of questions about how I get my canvases to hang up there. What I've got is I've got long screws in the studs, and they stick out, the screws stick out about a 1/2 inch. And I've got those going actually all the way around my studio so that I can hang my canvases anywhere in the studio and look at them from afar, or just have them up there after I'm done with them, or if they're just work in progress. And this has been a super simple solution. I only have one row. I know some artists create several rows of the screws in the studs so that they can change the position of their canvas, bring it up higher, bring it down lower. Like if they're working a lower section, they can just move it up higher so that they can work that lower section easily. That would be great, and I never got around to doing that. Maybe I will someday, but for now, this is the way I use it, and it's been working great for me. Now, when I've got 3 canvases like this, I don't have enough room to put a third one up on the wall. So this was a little bit challenging, but really not that difficult. As long as they were close together, I was able to work on all 3 at the same time. I've got plastic on my wall. It's 4 mil, the number 4, MIL plastic. And that plastic is a bit of a thicker plastic. You'll find it in the paint department at your local hardware store. And if you can't find it there, you'll find it online on Amazon is, I think, where I've purchased it lately, because my local hardware store stopped carrying it for whatever reason. But there are even thicker plastics. I think they've got them. This is a 4 mil. I think they've got like an 8 or a 10. I think the 4 is plenty thick enough, and it works great. I use it as my palette. So on my table, I've got my entire table covered with the same plastic. And I don't change it out. So you can see on my wall, a lot of drips, a lot of paint on this from painting the sides of my canvases, and that will remain there. I don't, maybe at some point it might get to be too thick, but it's been, a year and a half now. So here I'm shifting these around. I brought the bottom one up so that I can see how that looks. And I think the one on the right isn't hanging right. Oh, maybe it is. I think my camera is tilted a little funny. So I'm looking to see how is that flowing one into another. All right, I have come back, and I believe at this point, if I remember correctly, at today I had already met with the clients, I think earlier, and I am now going back to their canvases after having a conversation with them about where it's at. And they decided on adding a little bit more brightness and more darker areas. So I'm starting in right away with adding more darker areas. And then I'm going to be adding some more of the blues and the greens and brightening them up a little bit. So it was nice having them come to the studio to check out the progress, and that really helped give me some direction in terms of how I'm going to finish these. So in addition to adding the darker colors and adding a little bit more brights of the blues and the greens, they also requested that I add a lot more mark making to it. So they were comparing it to the 3 gray ones that I did that I initially had planned for them. And although they requested these canvases to be a little bit quieter and more calming, they felt that my previous 3 canvases that I did in the grays, that they liked those more so, the type of style that I had done in those. So I'm going now back through these, and I'm going to be adding a lot more mark making, a lot more interest and layering to them. So it was good to get that feedback that they decided to go a different direction than they had originally requested. And sometimes that happens. So working towards the finish now, I felt much more, I would say, not that I wasn't confident before, because I was confident in what I was doing, but I was trying to, I'm always trying to figure out what the client wants and trying to understand what they want. And so now I felt like I had a much better understanding, and I was, moving forward much quicker, and I didn't feel like I was hesitating as much. Now in this view, you can see my 2 photos at the very top. Those are the 2 that are the inspiration pieces. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, you can follow me there. I'm also on Pinterest, although I don't post as much on Pinterest as I would like to, but you can definitely find a lot of my art there. I tend to spend the majority of my time on Instagram and then also on Facebook. And I've got links down below, or you can just look up Betty Frank's art. One of the fun things about having so much art that I've created over the years is that I have uploaded a lot of the images to Fine Art America. They're also called pixels. Not that I believe. They are called pixels. You can go to either Fine Art America or Pixels, and you'll find I've got a page there, and you can order all kinds of products with my art images on them. So you can order, for example, pillows or even note cards, notebooks, shower curtains, tote bags. I've got the pillows and the tote bags, and And masks. I did quite a bit. I purchased quite a bit of masks last year. We're still wearing masks. We're still kind of coming out of Corona. And at the time of this recording, which is in late April, and I think I'm posting this sometime in May. So May of 2021, we're still, post-corona, slowly getting out of it. People are getting vaccinated. I've been double vaccinated now it's been a week since my second vaccination shot. So I'm really excited about that and having that, trying to put COVID behind us. I think we're all ready to move forward again and freely move around the country again and worldwide. If you're interested in learning to paint in the style that I create in, I've got an online workshop. It's a recorded workshop from a live workshop I did last year, and this recorded workshop has been extremely popular. Folks are loving it, and it takes you through 2 hours of spending time with me where I'm creating on a large 24 by 18 inch paper up on the wall so you can really see what I'm doing. And you can also create on canvas if you'd like. I chose to work on paper during that particular recording, but I'll take you through my whole process. But also I have included a session on harmonizing your colors and the importance of harmonizing your colors so that your paintings really come together. And I talk a little bit about composition as well and answer a ton of questions as I'm creating. So if you want to check that out, I'm going to include the link down below. And the link, once you purchase it, it's going to send you'll receive a email right away with a link to the recording, and the link takes you to YouTube. It's a private link, so you don't need any special software or passwords or anything like that. You just need the link and it'll take you right to it. So super simple. And I'm available via email to answer any questions for you. If you prefer creating smaller and you want to learn how to do that, or at least watch me how I do that, I've got a whole bunch of videos of me working small. And if you go to my home page and just scroll down a bit, you'll see an area called Small Art. And a lot of those are art on paper, but lately I've also been working on cradled wood. So cradled wood panel paintings. What I meant to mention earlier also about the plastic that I'm using as my palette is I just peel that off. So after I've got a few layers on there, it's easy to peel it off and start fresh again. There I'm using that pale pink, which is called portrait pink or portrait something. Very soft, subtle color. So this video is a bit longer than my others, and that's why I sped it up more so. And that's because I'm working on 3 paintings. I'm trying to create 3 at one time, and that's, it's certainly going to take a bit longer than just working on one painting. And especially as I get towards the end here, I'm trying to make sure that each painting in itself can stand alone, but yet work with the others as well. And that just takes a whole lot more brain work to to pull that off and pull it together. So still working on creating smaller elements and larger elements. I think some of my larger elements are already there, but now I'm bringing in kind of medium size and smaller ones. Some of them got lost in the earlier layers, so bringing those back up to the forefront. I like to use gesso as my white. In that big white bottle that you see on my desk over there, that one is actually a Liquitex bottle, but I pour into it my Nova Color gesso. And the reason for that is the Nova Color gesso that I buy comes in a large gallon size, and so I like to have it in that squeeze bottle to easily be able to squeeze some onto my palette. Now I like using the gesso because I use a ton of gesso. Almost all my colors end up mixing with white. And because I use so much of it, I just found it to be so much more cost effective to use gesso as opposed to white paint. But I do have white paint open, and I think I'm using it, maybe not this time. Sometimes I'll use it, sometimes I don't. I can see it right behind my phthalo turquoise is my white quart-sized jar of white paint. Now, if I'm looking for something to be really white, then I'll switch to that. But otherwise, I just end up using my gesso. And I just love the way the gesso also builds up more texture as I'm going. If you are still with me watching this video, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully you're creating alongside with me and doing your own thing or painting along with me. Sometimes I like to just put on YouTube. Usually when I'm working small and I'm working in my other studio where I'm sitting down, sometimes I'll put on YouTube and watch different artists creating or just listening to them while they talk through their process. All right, we're getting very close to the end here. Still fine-tuning it. And this is where, it's trying to decide when it's done. And I'm not feeling like it's quite done. And often, when I get to the point where I think it's done, I have to sleep on it and then come back to it the next day. And what I'm looking for when I come back to it is, where's my eye going first? And am I happy about that, or am I not happy about that? So if my eye is going to an area and I'm frowning, then I know that I need to work that area because it's not working. But if I'm looking at it and my eye's going to areas and I'm smiling, that's an indicator that I'm pleased with it and I'm ready to call it done. There I was outlining, making it a little bit darker, but then decided it was a little too dark, so I am kind of removing some of it. Rags come in handy. I use rags more so than paper towels. With rags, I can use them, sometimes I use them for a month or more before I have to throw them out. So I feel like I get a lot of use out of them. Okay, I decided I didn't like what I had done up there, so I sprayed that and just wiped it all down. That's the beauty of acrylics, as I mentioned before. If you don't like it, you can spray it down or let it dry and come back in with another layer. So this green I created with using the yellow green. You can see the jar, not now, but it's on my table over there. There you can see it, the yellow green, and then I'm adding a little bit of yellow to it to brighten it up a bit. And white, constantly adding white. So when I was talking about Fine Art America / Pixels, I forgot to mention that I'll include a link down below. I haven't done that on my other videos because I've never talked about my art on products, but I'll be sure to include that link down below if you want to check those out. So I love the tote bags. There's a tote bag that I purchased that I love, love, love. Use it for my travels, and I don't use it like for groceries, but you can certainly use it for that if you want. I use it more for traveling and going places where I need to add a few extra things to my bag. My purse is really a small purse, so I like having the extra bag with me sometimes. And then I haven't purchased a shower curtain, but I've had people send me pictures of the shower curtains they've purchased, and they look fantastic. So that might be next on my list. I do have pillows. I love my pillows. And let's see, I'm trying to think what else. So I talked about the masks. That's where I got off track. Okay, so I talked about the masks, and I mentioned that there are cards and notebooks. I'm trying to think what else I've got that is available. Oh, there are phone cases. So if you'd like to get a phone case with my art on it, those are available as well. Anyway, check out the link, and I'm always updating or adding more images of my artwork so that there's more variety to pick from. So the link will be down below. Here I'm using a finer brush. Might be my script brush where I can, nope, I don't think it's my script brush. I think it's a long-handled brush with very long bristles on it. So changing out the brush size is really important for me because I like to have a variety of different size marks, and I achieve that by using different brushes throughout. There, I was scratching right into that wet paint, drying it because I don't think I like it, so I think I'm going to be painting over it one more time. That dryer comes in very handy. There we go. I'm lightening it up a bit. And mixing different colors on my palette, but mostly a lighter color. And scratching back into it again, pushing some of it away, scratching back in. I don't think I could decide what to do with that area. There we go. Extend it down a bit. I think it was just kind of floating there a bit too much. All right, I'm calling it done. I am packing up, putting the lids on everything, and I'm back. Now, the reason I'm back is I'm doing my final mark making, and I think I ended up turning off the video because you can't see what I'm doing. And if you really want to see some of my mark making up close, I'd recommend that you watch one of my videos where I'm creating small on paper or on one of my smaller pieces, and you'll get a better view of my type of mark making. Now, I slowed down the video so that you can see up close here all of the marks that I made, and I'm going to be pointing out some of them. And I actually slowed this down to, I think it was 100% is normal rate. So I think I slowed this down to like 80%, and it still seems a little fast. Okay, there you can see some of my marks. There we go, some mark making there. All right, so now I'll start pointing out where some of those marks are. Those are just regular pencil marks there. There's some marks from earlier layer, and there too. See those scribbles there? Those are, some of them are from earlier layers, some of them I may have done on the final layer. So a variety where you can see some depth of some marks from underneath. So those circles are also pencil marks. There's some Prismacolor pencil marks in that pinkish color there. So my final marks tend to be a combination of some loose marks and also some intentional marks. And the bottom one, here we go, some more small circles in a pencil. There's marks up above there in pencil. That one's a little hard to see. My stomach is growling. I'm hoping that you guys can't hear that. It's time for breakfast. All right, there's my signature. Now, what I decided, because these three are going to hang together, I put my signature only on the one that was going to be on the far right instead of putting it on every single one. And that way it would make it feel more like it's one large painting on three separate panels. But I do sign the back of each one so that, you know, each one has my signature to show that it is mine. Now I'm going to do a quick studio tour. I always like to give you guys a quick tour at the end. Now that piece up there is a 36 by 36, but I taped off part of it because I was working on a commission, and I'll show you that. And I needed one section of that painting. So there's the commission that is inspired by that other one, and that one's not done. And those are the three grays that I talked about and included a video link earlier. Here I've got a wood piece on the wall that I worked a little bit later. There's my front door, and back to the three canvases. All right, so now we're outside, and I am using a spray varnish. I didn't show me spraying all of them, but all of them get sprayed with workable fixative. And I do this outside because it has a very toxic smell to it. So I do it outside, and then I wait about 15 minutes before bringing them in, and I'm using Liquitex matte varnish. And this is just a regular synthetic brush that you get in the painting section of your local hardware store. And yes, I did speed this up. Imagine if we can work this quickly. Crazy, right? And then I've got the third one in another area. So I did get that first coat of varnish on all three of them. So there they are. And I absolutely love the way they turned out. The clients love the way they turned out. They've already got them hanging in their home. And there's individual photos of each one here. And there we go. All right, so thank you again for sticking it out, for watching, and I really appreciate you being here. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can do that here, and you can check out some more videos as well. All right, folks, wishing you a super wonderful and colorful day. Take care. Bye-bye.